Good morning. The purpose of this video is to go over the basics for our next IED project, which is to design a game. This is the Distance Learning Project 115 from the PLTW curriculum. So if you'd like to go in and look at their version of this project at any time, you can log into your account and do so. The project goal is to apply the design process to effectively solve a problem. Now, you will be working in teams to do this. And because we're hybrid for at least another week and a half, some of that teamwork will be virtual. And then we're back face to face, but still trying to remain distance if the project takes longer than that. Just please keep in mind that this is a new project for the PLTW curriculum. It's the first time I've run this project, and it's certainly the first time I've ever tried to do a project that's some part like in class and some part virtual. So I'm going to outline in this video what I envision the project to be, and then we will make adjustments as needed. So the idea of this is a Funfair game. So if you look over on the left of the slide there, it talks about what a Funfair is. It's like a carnival where there are games to play that you can win prizes. This year, I'm on the second paragraph down. This year, your school has decided to host a fun fair for all students and their families. To allow for social distancing, the size of each game area must be limited. As an engineering student, you have been asked by the school's fun fair committee to develop a game using a beanbag that will meet all of the guidelines. So I think I can turn my video off. Maybe not, but because I've never done this before, so at least it turned off on my screen. But we have the guidelines over here on the right. If this is still obstructed when we watch the video, I will make sure that you have a hard copy of the guidelines so that you know what your game has to be. But the maximum footprint, that's the Funfair booth area, is 3 feet by 10 feet and includes the game itself and the player, so it has to fit within that amount of square footage. The maximum size of any individual game feature, such as a game board, is 20 inches by 30 inches. The game must incorporate either launching or tossing a beanbag. Your game should use a mathematical model to determine the required accuracy or precision to win. In other words, how do you know if you won a prize? Sometimes that's pretty clear, like if you're playing like cornhole or something where you have to get the beanbag into the hole to win, but maybe you win a prize if you come like within so many inches. Your game rules should clearly explain how to interact with the game and should be easy to understand. That can be tricky when you're writing your game rules. Have somebody who's not on your team read those game rules to see if they understand how they would be playing it. The game should be easy to reset between players, and the safety of all players must be considered. Project deliverables. So you are going to deliver certain things to me for a grade, and I do have a slide at the end of this presentation that will go into more detail about exactly what pieces you need to turn in. But this is, when you talk about deliverables, it's what you have to produce. So in the workplace, this would be what your boss actually needs to see on his or her desk. You will be completing what's called a design brief, and there is a handout for that. You will be doing some concept sketches with your team. Each individual will be doing some concept sketches. You're going to work on something called a decision matrix, which is a way of evaluating your different ideas. So in your team, you're going to come up with so many different ideas. How do you decide which one of those ideas you're going to move forward with? Then you will need to justify that decision. So once you make the decision about what game you're going to go with, why did you pick that one? And then a more detailed graphical model or sketch of the game. Because remember, the concept sketch is supposed to be quick and clear. Okay, so one of the things about the concept sketch is that it is quick, but it's not necessarily super detailed. When you do your graphical model or sketch, that's going to be detailed. That's going to be after you decide on what game you're going to go with. That is the word detailed, boys and girls. So concept sketch is a quick little sketch. The once you decide, then you're going to have someone in your group do a more detailed sketch. You will have to give the game rules and instructions. You will do a mathematical model for the required accuracy or precision to win a prize. that will probably be qualitative more than quantitative, but it will depend on your actual game. And then you'll actually be constructing and testing a prototype. So you're going to build your game. You might be able to do it life size, or you'll do what's called a prototype or a scale model of what your game would look like. And then you're going to evaluate based on your prototype whether or not your game actually meets the requirements of this game for the Funfair, and you'll make recommendations for any changes. And then you will have a proposal to do at the end. So let's talk a little bit about what a design brief is. Choose one person in your group to be responsible for submitting the design brief. So this is one of the things that you are going to turn in. What I have on the right there is the design brief template for you to fill out. So you have your client, your target consumer, the people working on the design, that would be you and your teammates, your problem statement, which is restating what we're trying to do in your own words, your design statement, we'll talk about that in class. Then we have some of the criteria listed, your constraints, and so forth. All members should read it before it's submitted and give feedback for improvements as necessary. So one person in your group is going to be responsible for filling this out. But as can happen with group work, sometimes one person goes and does it, other people have no idea what that person has done, and then they either coast on someone else's good grade, or if that person messes it up, then they get upset because, like, hey, that was my grade and you messed it up. So whoever is doing the design brief, first of all, write in pencil, and then every member of the group should be able to read it, see it, and then offer feedback. So we've talked about what feedback is in this class. If there's something on that design brief that you don't think was as clear as it could be, you're going to offer those suggestions, that actionable suggestions for improvement, so that you're okay with whatever's being submitted for your group. Then you will generate some concept sketches. So each person in your group needs to generate at least 2 ideas along with their concept sketches. So after you get your design brief done, you will work independently to kind of think, well, what materials do we have? What game can I make? You're not going to talk with your other team members about this. You're just going to generate your idea with your concept sketches. You will need to share those sketches and explain your ideas with your group, either virtually or in person, and that will depend on what day we're doing that. If it's a face-to-face day, then you can actually, say hello to your group mates face-to-face, and even like hand them your sketches, do hand sanitizer if you're going to be handing stuff back and forth. If it's a virtual day, I will put you into virtual groups, and you can start a meeting, or I can start a meeting for you, and you can actually see and talk to your group members virtually. Then you'll create what's called a decision matrix to choose a design from all of those presented. So I'm thinking you will have between 6 and 8 ideas if you have 2 per person that come in. So 6 and 8 designs that you're going to try to decide between. We will create the decision matrix as a class, and then you'll apply it as a group. So when we get to the part with the decision matrix, we will talk about it together. We'll talk about the different requirements, like what's making a good design here. Things that usually come into play is cost, how much time it's going to take you to build it, whether or not it meets all of the constraints and requirements, how much space it will take up, whether you have the materials. I might have already said that, but we will come up with a decision matrix. What you see at the bottom of your screen there is an example of what one might look like. So listed vertically in the left-hand column are the different ideas. So you might have like between 6 and 8 different ideas. Then going across in the columns, you have the different factors that come into play when trying to decide if something is good. So we have here, like, is it safe? Is it easy to play? Is it easy to assemble? Is it engaging? That might be like your creativity. Does it meet all the constraints? And then what you need to do is you rank those on a scale of best to worst. And so if it meets the size constraints, so you can tell, like in this particular group, 3 of them met all of the design constraints, so they got full points on that. Maybe one of them was lacking, but notice that the group gave it a 3. They didn't give it a 1. So it's probably something that wasn't meeting one of the constraints, like it was a little bit too big, but it could easily be fixed. So it wasn't like a wipe this, like we can't use this design at all. Easy to assemble. Okay, and they ranked these like 4, 3, 2, 1, and so forth on the ease of assembly, ease of play, safe design. I don't know what's going on with this one, the can knockdown, but it doesn't look like it's easy to assemble, and it doesn't look like it's safe. And then what you do is you total up the points, and pretty much the design with the highest total is the design you're going to pick because it meets the greatest variety of the criterion constraints to the greatest degree. Now, you might have something in there that's a deal breaker. Like, so even if it has the highest point total, it scored low on something that renders it, you can't do it. Like it's going to cost you like $150 for a school project, in which case you're not doing that one. Like, don't do that one. But otherwise, that's how the design matrix works. And you will use your group's design matrix to choose which of the designs you'll make. And then you will have to justify that decision. So if you go with the highest total, it'll probably be easy to justify it because you can go through each of them and say this design is the best balance of all the different things. If you go with something that's not the highest point total, you need to explain why. And it's totally okay to go with something that's not the highest point total. So your group will use your design matrix to choose one of the proposed designs and then write a 2 to 5 sentence justification for your choice. This will include a more detailed sketch of the design, both the game itself and how it will be laid out in the space provided. And you will also, at this point, state the rules for playing and winning. You want to answer the question, how do I play this and how do I know if I've won something? So that will go along with your decision. Next part, this is the part students like to jump to. Like, give me these supplies and let me build something. So you will work either independently or as a group. This will depend on whether we're meeting virtually or on campus at this point in the project to build a prototype of your game. I have several supplies. They're sitting in my living room right now that I will bring in so you'll have an idea. I'll give those to you or show them to you before you even do your concept sketches because you don't want to do a concept sketch for something you won't have the materials to build. But you're going to build a prototype. It could be life size. It could be scaled down. That's going to be up to you. But basically, you want to find out, will this idea actually work? You're going to test your prototype, try playing your game, try following the rules, see how it works, and then document any changes you make in your engineering notebook. Because once you build it and start to play it, there's a very good chance that you will decide that there's something that doesn't work about it, and you will want to change it. And that's okay. That's a good thing. That's part of the design process. Remember that iterative design process where you go back and you make those changes. You just need to make sure that you document those changes in your notebook that you are making them. Collect any necessary data to support that your game meets all the space and safety requirements. Because when you do your proposal, you need to argue to the Funfair committee, or like i.e. your boss, that your design does meet all of the requirements. So make sure that you have any data necessary from your testing. Then you'll write your formal design proposal. This will include the detailed sketch. We've already talked about that, the list of the rules. I also want a description of how your trial went and either, okay, like one or the other, an explanation of why your game meets all the requirements. So yay, okay, like it met all the requirements. Or if you realize that it doesn't, you will need to, instead of explaining why it meets the requirements, you will suggest changes so that your game will meet the requirements. Remember, when we're doing design, it's not always about getting this perfect thing the first time. And you have time constraints on this project. We are not going to work on this project into October. So at some point, you're just going to have to take what you have and say, all right, how do I explain this to Miss Taylor? How do I explain it to the class? And so if you're at a point where it doesn't meet the requirements, then you have to do this. You have to suggest the changes and show that you've thought about it. And given more time, you could produce something that would meet those requirements. That's real life. Okay, so what I did here was I tried to put this together in a spreadsheet of, okay, what are all the pieces that you need to turn in? So submissions are going to be for the whole group. This is a group project, and I know that group projects can go really well or they can go really poorly, especially if you have a group member or group members who aren't doing their share of the work. So I am going to try to check in with your groups regularly to find out who has been responsible for which pieces of it. So be sure you agree on what a team member is going to is doing before they submit it. If somebody is responsible for doing the design brief, that you look at that, you agree. Somebody who's going to do the detailed sketch. Some of you guys are amazing artists. Like, you have done concept sketches or sketches of me teaching that are just like really fantastic. If you've got somebody in your group that is talented at doing those sketches, put them in that slot. Like, let them do something they're really good at so that they can contribute where their strength is. Some of you are going to be very good at writing, and the written portion and the justification, if that's your strength, jump in and volunteer for it. If your strength is building stuff and you really want to get your hands on that, building the prototype, and you have all these ideas for that, jump in, volunteer. When you first meet your group, take some time and talk about what your individual strengths are, because we are all differently gifted, and engineers have varying skill set. So not every engineer is great at building things. Not every engineer is great at sketching and so forth. So looking at this, you are going to submit your design brief, and you'll notice the due date is blank. You are going to submit your decision matrix. You're going to submit what you chose and a written justification of why you chose it. And that will go with the decision matrix. You will submit a detailed sketch of your game. You're going to submit the rules for playing it. You're going to submit your results of the prototype testing. And that could be numerical results, like actual physical measurements that you will submit, or it could be a written description of, we tested it and here's what happened. And then your final design proposal, which will be like, this is why our game is a good one to have at the Funfair, or like the suggestions for improvement. So over on the right here, I said, I realize that some of this is vague at the time of the video, because I have to plan in advance, and this is done, I'm doing this over the weekend. So we haven't even done the precision accuracy activity yet. So I'm not even sure at this point what day we're starting this project. And of course, when we start it, we'll determine which days we're face-to-face, which days we're virtual, and when we hit the full return to campus. So part of it is also because this is a new project for PLTW. I did not do this project with my IED kids last year. So it is the first time that I'm thinking through it and thinking through all of the stuff that I want you to turn in. As we move forward, I will clarify and adjust requirements as needed. And that's part of the design process in itself. If you think back to what is the design process, it means making adjustments to things as we go. Always ask if you have questions. I want to help you, and I want to make sure that you're clear on what you need to turn in and when you need to turn it in. So you can get a hold of me through email. You can reach me through Remind. You can reach me through posting on Teams. Tag me if you want me to get a notification that you have posted in Teams. Otherwise, it could be a while before I notice that you've asked me a question. I promise I'm not going to get aggravated with you if you're asking me questions about what I want to see or whether what you're producing is the right thing. I want to answer those questions for you. And I'm aware that as we move through this, some of this might change or shift or adjust. I will give you a copy of this with the due dates, and as we start the project and start moving through it, I will fill in those dates, and I will make sure that I post that on Teams so that you're being kept up to date with the project as it evolves. I'm thinking that this will take us about a week and a half to do in its entirety. Which right now would put us at the end of our hybrid. And then when we come back face to face, we'll actually be moving into the next topic in the curriculum, but that could change. So we will move forward with the next thing, which is working on the design brief.